Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Kindly settle down. I'll take maybe 2-3 minutes for the people who are enjoying the refreshment to join us. All the viewers watch and logged in online, very warm welcome to you. You'll be formally welcomed by our Senior Vice President soon. I will just brief you what's happening in the next few days in MMA so that if you have, because most of our mails sometimes go to junk box so that you don't miss any of our good program, though we share the program through email, phones, WhatsApp. I want to tell you what's happening. Tomorrow, 27th of August, we have a talk at Venue Institute of Foundryman. This is an outreach program by MMA. We are doing at 10 different locations for the benefit of people who are staying. This is happening at Ananagar. Madras business coach will be talking about leadership. Then on Sunday, 28th of we are doing the Madras quiz by Murugappa Group. We are one of the partners for the event. It's happening at this auditorium between 2 and 6 p.m. And Suman C. Raman is the quiz master. Kindly settle down, gentlemen. Suman C. Raman is the quiz master. He will be leading the quiz and it will be outstanding. It will be jam-packed. We expect about 300 to 400 people to come. 350, balance 100 people, accommodate them outside. But everybody will have a gala time, I can assure you. It's one of the most popular quizzes. Then on Friday, on Monday, 29th, we have another very important event, that is My Train 18 story. Vande Bharat Express, you all know that they were in some news, and now the government of India has really adopted to make many of our areas and where it will become a train which will reduce the travel time by quite a number of hours. Sudhanshu Mani, who is the former general manager of ICF, he is the author of that book and he will be there. Along with him, we have very outstanding panelists. Professor Kamakoti, he is the director of IIT Madras. Muthukumar Tanu is CS Charu of TAFE. And Mrs. Indira Prem Manan, chairman, managing director of Senatipati company, which is there. Also, she will be part of the team. Then Friday, 22nd September, we have success story outdoors done. I really tell you, it's not to be missed even because this is the Aravind story. We have Tulsiraj Ravila, who is executive director of Aravind Eye Care. He is going to be coming and talking to us. And I'm quite sure you join this, you'll really get inspired. And Mr. Lakshmi Narayanan, Chairman Emeritus, has kindly agreed to chair the session. On Tuesday, 6th September, we have again a very interesting event, Social Impact, Creating Employment in Small Towns. This is our area of concern. You've got job creation, job employment, and Maitri Ramesh works quite a lot in this area as a co-founder, CEO of Next Wealth Entrepreneurs. And this is the event which is happening on 6th September at MMA Management Center. Please do come. This is again an interesting event. On 9th of September, again we have a very outstanding event, especially for the management students. You will love this. The 12 Habits of Smart Skill Building. And not only management students, many managers who aspire to go to the next level should listen to this entire team who are Bala Shankar, who is a management consultant in Singapore. He is also teaching in Singapore Great University. And Anantha Session is the managing director of QME and also member of MM Managing Committee. Ranganathan, ex-partner of Chartered Accountant from Ernst & Young, he will be there. And Senthil Ramani is a senior partner and the chief of AI Innovation Growth Markets Accenture. So this is a very high-profile panel. You come. Then 15th September, I got only two more, got another minute for me. Unlocking the potential of employee using technology. You must come to this event. Again, we are lined up some outstanding speaker. This we are doing in collaboration with Apple. Then thereafter, 29th of September, we are also going to discuss about water and disaster management, the Chennai story. I think many of you all the time worried about what's happening. My road has been cut. I'm not able to come out. But so many things are happening. We'll find some experts are going to come and speak to you. So you will know more about coming to today's event. It's eagerly awaited event because topical, very current, fear of global recession and impact on India. Everybody is worried. Every day you look at the stock market, you are worried. Look at anything, you are worried. What's happening? You're not getting your car delivered. You're not getting your scooters. So many things are happening, but still all very happy that a lot of things are very prosperous and things are growing very well. And we have some outstanding panelists to really talk to us on this important subject. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hand together to welcome the distinguished panelists and the chief guest and the guest of honor for this evening. Let me have the privilege of inviting Dr. S. Narayanan, former economic advisor to the Prime Minister of then Mr. Vajpayee, and also former Finance Secretary, Government of India, and also advisor to the Government of Tamil Nadu. Then we have Ravichandran Purushothaman, is the President of Indian Region, Danfoss Industries Limited, and also past President of MMA. Raghuveer Srinivasan, editor, Hindu Business Line. We also have Mali, who is a senior vice president, will be delivering the formal welcome address. Merikuchu and Satyamurthy, who is a partner for this event. Satyamurthy is the one who is putting together and also driving us to bring out some outstanding events. And he's the founder of People Matters. It's a think tank, very active in Chennai. May I request all the dignitaries please come onto the dais and take their place. Mr. Narayanan, Raghuveer, Ravi, and Satyamurthy. Gentlemen, big round of applause to our distinguished panelists for this evening. Sure. Now it's my proud privilege to request our Senior Vice President and also partner CSM Group, K. Mahalingam, to deliver the formal vote of thanks. You all know Mali is very known because he is founder, director of Curious People and also freelance advertising communication. And Mali also partner of TSM Group of companies which has interests across automobile, real estate, distribution, financial services. If anybody is buying the car, I don't think you would have escaped TSM and Sons, because you buy once, you are become Avi on the place. So you keep buying from there only. And that's what we also do. Mali also a regular guest speaker, is our Senior Vice President and drives many initiatives in MMA, including CSR. And may I request Mali to please deliver the formal welcome address.
Good evening, everybody. Warm welcome to all of you. Warm welcome to our dignitaries on stage. I'm going to spend very little time because I'm waiting to hear from such a power-packed panel. Actually, MMA has had a power-packed week this week. Healthcare, retail, pride of Tamil Nadu, and to top it all, we have the icing on the cake is this evening, basically. Okay. A topic like this, fears of global recession and impact on India. When you hear a topic like this, many of us originally would think it's a macroeconomic thing. But I realized that when I looked at what it was, it's something which has been impacting all of us on a day-to-day basis over the last 6 months or even longer. We've been paying higher for petrol or diesel, interest rates have gone up, there's inflation, input prices have gone up, cost of living has gone up. So it's not something which is far away which you're discussing. I think we're discussing something which you're experiencing as we go on. And if this war continues, I think it's going to get tougher. And interest rates are already going up, deposit rates have gone up, borrowing rates, home loan rates have gone up. Everything is going up, all input prices are going up. So it's something real and happening. It's not something esoteric economic concept. I think it's something, and all of us are waiting to hear what the impact on India would be if there's a global recession. So I think it's something very, very interesting. This war, I think history will remember, in my opinion, as something which just did not alter the geography of the world, but possibly alter the economic order of the world. I think that's something which is happening, and I'll be really waiting to hear from all these experts. And look at the panel that's discussing it. Really power-packed. You have a former economic advisor to the Prime Minister who's seen the world from a very vantage point. Then you have a policy expert like Mr. Satyamurthy. Then you have the journalist, the top business journalist this side of the country, Mr. Raghuveer Srinivasan. And then you have our own Ravi, I'll call him, former president of MMA, who heads a multinational business and deals a lot with countries in that zone. So I think he's got a real ringside view of what's happening on economy and business there. It's really our honor and privilege to welcome all of you. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation and being here. So welcome to all of you. I'm sure it's going to be very, very, the best thing about the last 1 week is we have had very packed. This room has been packed a lot. I think that's thanks largely to Vijay Kumar and his team who put together a lot of good content, a lot of great speakers. I think we should give a big hand to Vijay Kumar. And partly because I think a lot of us are waiting to come back to events like this also. And this Sunday he's promising to do a quiz which is going to have the hall over, spilling over, I guess. Thanks, Vijay Kumar, as I mentioned. Finally, I would like to say a few words about MMA and why we are what we are, because MMA has around 8,000 members, largest management association in the country, awarded the best management association 12 times in a row till now, and we conduct around close to what, 700 programs a year. 700 programs a year. So, and we still get people attending, and every program gets at least 1,000, 1,500 views online, and sometimes even 10 or 15,000. I'm sure this will generate a lot. So with that note on MMA, I welcome all of you. Thank you all of you for coming and participating. I'm sure we'll have a really nice session and we'll go back wiser on what is going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mali. Yes, we have a large number of viewers, and I'd like to share with the members. We made a new initiative. We spoke about create a video about the flag, Argar Tiranga in the MMA, and we talked all about the flag. Yes, I'm so delighted to share with you that we had over 150,000 views for that. What MMA made that. The idea is our things are catching up. Our YouTube channel is very popular. That's why we really make sure that we start the program on time and end on time. For a large number of viewers watch this program, they log in, so we don't want to disappoint them. That's the reason we do that. Now, let me have the privilege of introducing Satyamurthy, old good friend. He's a convener of Policy Matters. He's a distinguished fellow of War of earlier. Before this, and Satyamurthy worked at several newspapers in India. And anytime I just can't hesitate not to ignore to read his article about Sri Lanka. His authority on Sri Lanka, Maldives, and he writes so beautifully, so clear thoughts about it. And he toured all over the world, and he toured US as IVP scholar of the US Department in 2005. He obtained his first-hand knowledge about the US electoral system and operations. I request Mr. Satyamurthy to please share the overview of this conference this evening, what we are organizing for. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, everybody, and thanks, Team MMA, and of course, Group Captain Vijay Kumar. Today's topic is, as Mr. Mahalika Madras said, Group Captain said, it's a very timely topic, and I think it is going to remain timely for some more time, if not a very long time. That is also the concern why we wanted to have this session today, to learn from the experts, and I am certainly not one of them, on what is happening, what is likely to happen. See, 20 years back, 30 years back, when we had the Gulf Wars, that affected our petroleum price, fuel price, everyday price. But when Ukraine war started, not many people, certainly not the layman, thought it is going to impact him so much. Suddenly everyone is learning that Russia is a major supplier of crude for Europe, and Ukraine is a major supplier of food. That kind of knowledge is coming out of this war. At the same time, there is also this pain. Many nations, many economies have collapsed. Many are waiting to collapse. And there are various factors. You can say COVID, you can say local issues as happened in Sri Lanka or Ukraine war. But the economic situation the world over, to put it very positively, is very dynamic. And that is not a good time. If it moves forward, fine. But no one is talking that global economy, or even for that matter, our national economy is doing fine and it will be moving forward. Other than government economists, not even government economists to say, other than the political class from the ruling party in this country, no one is saying we are going ahead. But are we not? And critics of the government, there are many, and they say exactly the opposite things. So we thought how these two marry in our context, national context, and the industry context and the common man's context. Because as Mr. Mahalika was mentioning, price rise and everything has this such a high level, it can really hurt. It is already really hurting us. It can hit the socio-political infrastructure or the backdrop, and with 2 years, election 2 years hence, it can have consequences, positive and negative. All these things will impact on the economy all over again. If someone sneezes in Nairobi, suddenly the stock prices in Bombay is going up or down. This kind of situation is what globalization has brought in, but it has also its positives, as we have seen in the last 25-30 years. With this small intro, I invite my panel of speakers, Dr. S. Narayan, who has been helpful to me in putting together this concept, and he will initiate the discussion, followed by Mr. Raghuveer Srinivasan. And for industry view, we have Mr. Ravi Chandran. Over to you, sir. Thank you, Ravi. And the speakers will take about 15-20 minutes.
Now it's my proud privilege to introduce the distinguished speakers for this evening. As the format of this talk is, all the viewers, you have any questions, please, the screen, there's a number. You can send it to us, the number, or WhatsApp to us, or you can even email to us. We'll collate all the questions and place it before the distinguished panelists. They'll be there to answer all the questions what you put, but let it be relevant to the topic what we are discussing this evening. Let me have the privilege of introducing the speakers briefly. Dr. Narayanan, IAS retired, former Narayanan is a 1965 batch, nearly 4 decades, 65 to 2004 in public service in the state of central government, development administration, economic advisor to the former Prime Minister during 2003 and 4. Prior to this assignment, Narayanan served as the Government of India Finance and the Economic Affairs Secretary and the Department of Revenue, Petroleum and Industry Development. Narayan obtained his PhD from Indian Institute of Technology, New Delhi, and he has an MPhil Development Economics from Cambridge University, Master of Business Management Finance from University of Adelaide, and also graduated with MSc Physics from University of Madras and Madras Christian College. And it's indeed a proud privilege to have you with us this evening, sir. We are all eagerly looking forward to hearing you. Ravi Chandran Purushothaman, Ravi is the president of Danfoss Industries Limited. He is an 100% subsidiary of the leading family-owned Danish MNC, Danfoss, headquartered in Denmark. And Danfoss is the world leader in mobile hydraulic electrification, cooling and refrigeration, and drives the District of Heating and Technologies. Prior to this role, Ravi was heading Danfoss motion controls business of Asia Pacific. Ravi also is a member of a global management team, board member of Global Mentors since 2013. He has been an active energy, water, food and agri-technology, and he was the president of MMA 2020-21, and we have done some phenomenal work when he was the president, and he always continued to support MMA, his authority on energy, and we always, and always his goal and his ambition to make sustainable development goal is very, very important. He's keep pushing me. That's the reason we do quite a bit of work on sustainable development goal. Very warm welcome to you, Ravi. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Raghuveer Srinivasan, editor of the Hindu Business Line, is a chartered accountant by profession and also a cost accountant with over 20 years of experience in journalism, and now he's moved to Hindu Group. He was a business editor of the Hindu before he took over editor of Business Line in September 2020. Raghuveer is an avid watcher of economy and tracks automobiles, energy sector, and almost all the sector which is connected with the business and other environment. Raghuveer began his journalism career in the Business Line as a research analyst, joining the newspaper when it was launched in 1993. He was awarded a number of awards, and in 2010 he won the prestigious Thomas Jefferson Fellowship of East West Center, Honolulu, Hawaii, USA, which is awarded to the journalists in each sector who are outstanding performance. And it's indeed a privilege to have you with us this evening. And the format of the evening, as I said, we'll request our Chief Mr. Narayan to deliver the theme address, keynote, followed by Mr. Raghuveer will speak, then Ravi will share this insight, then thereafter we'll open the question to the audience, and then the number of questions already come to us in the email from the audience. We'll place those questions before the thing. Over to you. I now request Dr. Narayan to come and share your insights. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause to Dr. Narayan.
Thank you very much, and distinguished panel on the dais. It's always very interesting to talk about the Indian economy because whenever I stand and talk about it, there are lots of good things to say, lots of bad things to say. And you watch the tubes, you watch the TV, and the opposition is on about all the bad things that are happening, and the government is on about all the good things that are happening, and so are the newspapers. A lot of newspapers significantly are negative, a few newspapers are positive, and we have a wonderful country where right of center politics is considered something seriously wrong. I mean, that means if you are right of center, that means you are a capitalist, you are a money maker, you are a businessman. But left of center, and when you are wailing about all the things which have not happened, is fine. Okay? So that is the background under which every time I stand up, I talk. So let's start with the bad things. And then we'll talk about the good things. Seriously, globally, there's a problem. If you, start from an extreme. I need somewhere a clock so that otherwise I keep talking. Okay, good. Keep talking. Seriously, this year, if you just look at Europe right now, most of the rivers are dry. In fact, BASF is a huge chemical plant south of Frankfurt, and it moves all its raw materials by barge. They have cut down production by 30% because the river is dry. They are not able to move it. The Rhine is dry. The Danube is dry. Temperatures are going over the roof. And with the Russia-Ukraine war, there is not enough energy available there. Globally, LNG is in hugely short supply. LNG is so much in short supply that Bangladesh, Pakistan have all shut down their LNG plants, power plants. And we are also scrambling. We are scrambling for LNG. Normally we get it from Qatar. But Mr. Doval had to go to Russia to try and get some LNG for ourselves because we have a huge LNG demand which has been developed over the last 15 or 20 years. US inflation is about 7-8%, which is the highest in about 40 years or so. Compared to 1 year back, because of the increase in interest rates, etc., there's a slowing down of the economy. Housing prices have risen as much by 20%. Purchasing has dropped. At the same time, people are not turning up for work. My son tells me that if he takes a flight late in the evening, there are good chances that the pilot and crew don't turn up, even within the country. School bus drivers are being offered a $30,000, $40,000 incentive just to sign on to be a school bus driver. And they are getting about $22.50 an hour, whereas the minimum wage rate is somewhere like about $15 an hour. So there's a huge disruption. And this is not just because of the Russia-Ukraine war. Yes, the Russia-Ukraine war has certainly disturbed a lot of things. Disturbed the flow of energy, disturbed most importantly, the food, the wheat, sunflower oil, all that has been seriously disturbed. But this is not all. This price increase, that global price increase, there's a huge increase in commodity prices. Last year it has come down because of a certain amount of deflation. So, certainly, we are looking at global growth in uncertain times. China is also not growing well at all. China, in fact, because of their policy of zero COVID, actually their growth rate has come down significantly. Shipping costs have doubled. Containers are stuck. Unloading at ports is not happening. You can take a list of everything, and everything is, as of today, much worse than what it was last year, if you look at it globally. And that is at the height of the pandemic. At the height of the pandemic, things were better off economically than it is today. Britain is in free fall. Either of the people who win, it's going to be a very, very tough time for them to bring the economy together. So let us jump to What is the effect of it in India? Already we are seeing. One of our biggest, our costs of imports are going up, cost of oil is going up, cost of coal is going up, and coal and oil together amount to about 8 to 10% of our total import bill. So it's huge, single items. Our exports are starting to drop. The entire Tirupur, Erode, Coimbatore belt, the order bookings for the winter for the textile industry is 30 to 40% lower than last year. Last year was a boom year. Huge money people made last year. But this year it's 30 to 40% lower than last year. And if you look at the kind of incentives that the Chief Minister announced yesterday and day before, specifically targeting the MSME sector, provide them credit because he also realizes that they are in for a tough time during the coming year. Take IT and services. We are already seeing people like Google and others laying off. Our new export orders are significantly less than what was expected. So growth is less in terms of the services sector. Internally, we have had a 140, 150 BP increase of interest rates. So things are costly. We are also running a 6 to 7% inflation. We have run down our wheat stocks because we exported a lot and the wheat prices internationally got high, so we did not procure as much wheat. So since we did not procure as much wheat, the wheat stocks are low. We are hoping for a good harvest this year, but no. Because of the very, very late rain, wheat sowing is about 10% less. So we are going to have a serious increase in wheat prices. And a simple way to find out wheat prices, why wheat prices are going to go up, is the announcement yesterday that Reliance Retail is going to buy 5 lakh tons of wheat for its retail, that shops from the farmers directly, which means they want to gather the stock, which means your chapatis and rotis are going to get much higher priced by this time next year. So that's a picture. That's a global picture within which we are working. But let's look inside and we get a slightly different picture altogether. I talked about IT and I said that in the IT, international orders are dropping. But local digitalization, local orders are actually moving very, very fast. In fact, IT sector is short of personnel. Today, you cannot get a good developer or an AI guy in Chennai. Chennai, of course, is become a backwater for IT. Only it is a service industry, not a development industry. The products have all gone away from Chennai because those skills are no longer, I have been crying about this for the last 1 or 2 years, but those skills are no longer available in Chennai. People want to go to Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, Indore, etc., not to Chennai. Very difficult to get a middle management, senior management in the IT to come and resettle in Chennai. But okay, that's as an aside. But domestic IT is growing quite satisfactorily, quite rapidly. And therefore, you can see TCS and others recalibrating their employee salaries, employee pay, etc. In a way that they know that their international business is coming down, but the local business is going up. So naturally, they are managing costs very, very differently. After the COVID, once the things have opened up, There's a huge pent-up demand, which is now, you can see all over. All hotels are full. Hotel prices have gone up double because they lost a lot of money a couple of years back, have gone up almost double. A huge travel happening during the last August 15th weekend, about 10 lakh people left Chennai for the weekend. So the pent-up travel demand is happening. Eateries and restaurants are full, hotels are full, travels are full, there is the cabs and taxi cabs are full, everybody is spending all the time. So this is driving consumption. This is driving consumption in many ways. Even white goods are up. So, I can run down a list. So actually what's happening is capacity utilization in Indian manufactured goods, which is usually based on domestic demand, had come down to about 50, 55, 56% during the pandemic. It's already gone up to about 60%, 62%. Much more importantly, we rely very heavily on the small and medium enterprises. Even Tamil Nadu is one of the biggest center for small and medium enterprises. And in Tamil Nadu itself, capacity utilization in MSMEs has gone up at least by 10% over last year. And mind you, I was just saying that in export orders have come down. But capacity utilization now has gone up, which means production has gone up enormously. And now the kind of request they are making is only for finance. They want to expand, they want to invest in capital goods, they have markets, two-wheelers, four-wheelers, sales are, except for the semiconductor problem, two-wheeler, four-wheeler sales have started picking up. Electric vehicles have started picking up. So domestic production, though July has been July has been a poorer month than June, but still the PMI index is more than 53, 54%. It was 56 in June, it was 54 in July, it's just a blip. If you take the equity market and the financial markets, there's a huge drop down to about 15,000. Now you are back to 16,500. And the reinvestment that is happening is substantial. That means foreign investment is coming back into the market substantially. The time for the startups is gone. You'll not see much of new share issues this year. Most of the people who capitalized on this last year have very happily passed the losses on to the retail investor. So most of the investors are looking at losses about 30-40% on Paytm and whatever, etc. But okay, the promoters are quite happy. You won't see that kind of pattern anymore. You will see startups in manufacturing now starting to pick up. And starting especially, you are moving away from startups in the services sector to startups in the goods sector, which you will see in the next 1 or 2 years. And one of the major centers will be Chennai. And all around this IIT campus, this, that, etc. There are hundreds of startups which are making very innovative things in terms of sensors, in terms of 3D equipment, 3D manufacturing equipment, in terms of, I've seen at least a dozen of them doing very, very, very different things here. So here it's growing. So what does it all lead to? Okay, I talked about agriculture, wheat is going down, but this year we have got very good rains in Tamil Nadu, in the southern part of the country. So rice production is going to go up. Rice production is going to go up, the prices are, that means the farmer is going to be much more benefited. If the farmer is benefited, he'll buy tractors, he'll buy pumps, he'll buy agriculture equipment, he's okay to buy fertilizer. So which means that farm incomes are going to be, next few months, farm incomes are going to go up. That means going to go more into consumption. This is not the picture in the wheat growing areas. Wheat growing areas this year will be a little dormant, but the rice growing areas will see much better incomes. So, definitely we are growing very comfortably. Our economic growth, if you take into account the nominal growth is about 13.5%, real growth will be, if you take about 5.5% inflation, real growth will be 7.5%. Tamil Nadu is going to be extremely fortunate because of the large dispersion of industry and a good agriculture season. Tamil Nadu growth will be far higher than the national growth. In fact, far higher than many states. In fact, this year, there will be only 2 or 3 states whom you need to watch out for. One important state is Tamil Nadu. Telangana is growing extremely well. And of course, Maharashtra, because of Bombay, because of the financial market, because of because of Pune, because of a lot of service industry which is there. These 3, I would call the star. Gujarat a little lower, but still, because of the very good industrial base there, it will continue to grow. 4, I would call these 4 as the star performers who are going to outperform the national performance by at least 30 to 40%, 50%. And that is why you see a lot of chest thumping which is happening in the political arena in Tamil Nadu, saying we are so much better than you, so much better than you. Okay, unfortunately, okay. But a state which is doing much better than Tamil Nadu is, of course, Telangana. Very much better in all spheres. You just have to go to Hyderabad to realize this. So that is the overall picture. So are we affected? Yes, we are affected. We are affected because we import oil, we import coal. We are seriously dependent on these. We are seriously dependent on China as well. Our China imports have gone up enormously. And we need to do something about it. We need to continue to do something about it. We are nibbling at the edges. We have not got the solutions to the core of the problem. Infrastructure investments are happening in defense, in roads, in ports, in ships. So that will also create opportunities in the steel, cement, and other sectors. So this year we are comfortable, but the great thing about India is we always skate on the edge. We skate on the edge, and sometimes because of our own mistakes, sometimes because of global mistakes, etc. We are never on the surface. So we'll continue to skate on the edge, and hopefully we'll remain on the right side of the edge all of this year. Thank you.
Good evening, and it feels good to be back at the MMA podium after a long while. Thanks for the invitation, and it's an honor to be part of this distinguished panel. As I was telling someone just a few minutes back, I'm the outlier in this panel. One is an career finance expert, bureaucrat who's done a lot in his career, and who is now an advisor to the government of Tamil Nadu. The other is a practitioner, and I'm a mere hack, who writes for his living. So I'll try to measure up as much as I can to this panel. And it is not easy to follow someone like Dr. Narayan, especially after this tour de force which he gave just now, covering every aspect of the global economy and India's economic prospects. With every sentence, my heart was sinking because most of the stuff that I wanted to speak, he was already speaking. So let me start with the subject itself, fears of global recession and impact on India. This recession this R word, as they say it, is being used very freely these days. I mean, it's a very powerful word. It's not, recession is not something to be scoffed at. It is, the textbook definition will say 2 quarters of contraction. But what happens to an economy, to a nation, to a country, to a people is very severe. So the word should be used, in my opinion, very, very carefully. And, there's this tendency even amongst my own community, I should confess, to call every slowdown as a recession, either because of lack of understanding or because to create a fear psychosis, whatever reasons. Now, are we in the throes of a recession? Is the globe in the throes of a recession, or is it staring at recession? I would say no. Yes, there are lots of factors to be worried about. There are tremendous headwinds. Two of the two engines that run the global economy are in trouble: United States and China. Europe is in equal, if not greater, trouble than the other two. That leaves only India as a big major economy which is looking at positive growth this year. Before I go on to what works for India, let me set the context of the global situation right now. The United States, as Dr. Narayan said, is looking at a deep slowdown, if not a recession. The first quarter was negative growth, contraction. The second quarter was also a contraction, but less than 1%, and it has been improved. Yesterday's data release, it was 0.8% contraction in the second quarter. Originally, it's now come down to 0.6%. So things are not so bad. Actually, we'll get a clear picture another 3 hours from now when the Federal Reserve holds its annual meeting in Jackson Hole of all monetary policy leaders across the world. We are likely to get a indication of the Fed's thinking on the economy, on inflation, on where interest rates are likely to move. So the US is in a spot of bother, there's no question about that. Whether it is going to extend into a deep recession, we'll have to wait and watch. There are a lot of positives that are happening. Consumer spending, consumer sentiment in the last 1 month apparently has picked up. Jobless claims are coming down. So that's the United States. Europe is in a deep hole of its own making. You have 10% inflation in England, in the UK, and predictions are that it will go up to 17-18% over the next year and a half. And there is runaway inflation in other territories in the European region. Energy costs are primarily driving this inflation, thanks to the Russia-Ukraine war. And we are not even looking at the worst part yet, which is going to be the winter, with gas supplies dwindling and Russia slowly turning off its taps. Gas prices, Dr. Narayan alluded to it, LNG is at $55 per MBTU. And to give you an indication of how bad it is, the average is around $10 to $15. So that's a normal price which you would pay. And it's at $55 per million British thermal unit. So you're looking at steep energy price rises in the European region. That's going to send these economies on a tailspin. The UK is, I think, messing itself up in more ways than one, politically, economically. So that's the second factor. While everybody is focusing on the US and the West, the one country which is escaping under the radar is China. China is in even greater trouble than the United States at this point in time. Of its own making, you can say the zero COVID policy or whatever. But the second quarter growth in China was 0.4%. And the IMF has said that the growth for 2022 for China will be 3.3%. which is unimaginable. It's a 40-year low. China has not been at 3.5% in the last 40 years. And that's where, the country is headed now. There's a lot of political uncertainty as well, with the party congress likely to happen in October. And President Xi Jinping is, setting himself up for a third term. And there is some political backroom maneuvers going on. There is a Taiwan crisis. There is a eternal tension with India. Factories are locked. Shenzhen, which is the hub for electronics manufacturing, went through a shutdown a couple of months ago, and there were dire predictions. People said that if Shenzhen shuts down for 2 months, the world's electronics and automobile manufacturing will be, in super trouble. They have to shut down their own operations because the global supply chain, thanks to the globalization of the last 2 decades, we are more dependent on China than what we realize. So that's the problem in China. Property market is in trouble. Loans are not being repaid. Mortgages are not being respected by borrowers. And what is most worrisome is, I think 3 weeks ago, in the city of Hainan, the Chinese government had to bring in tanks onto the street to drive away depositors who were standing and protesting outside banks because they were not able to draw their money. So that is the serious situation. And the indication is when the whole world, across the whole world, central banks are tightening their monetary policy, increasing interest rates. China alone dropped interest rates. So that gives you an idea of what they are up against. So China is, to my mind, a greater worry than the United States at this point in time, and especially because it has linkages for India as well. What about the other big worries? We have energy prices, crude prices. Crude is, in the best of times, an unpredictable commodity, the way prices move. And we have seen in the last 6 months how much impact it can have on an economy like India if crude prices shoot past comfortable levels. Okay, they are now at a manageable level. They are still very high. They are not as high as they were 2 months ago. But energy prices, especially crude oil, is going to be, along with China, the major determinant of what's going to happen to the global economy in the next 1 year. If energy prices continue to shoot up, it's going to cause mayhem in Europe because inflation will rise, energy prices will rise, and in the United States as well. And geopolitics being what it is, there are already moves to, resurrect the Iran nuclear deal so that Iran's oil can be brought back. But even that is not having much of an impact. So this is the broad global scenario which we are up against. So does this mean that India's prospects are also bleak? I would again stick my neck out and say no. There is enough to worry about in India, absolutely. Not everything is hunky-dory. But I would still be cautiously optimistic about India's prospects in the next year. We are not looking at recession for sure. That is not going to happen. It's a question of whether they are going to grow at 7%, 6%, 5%. That's about all. And even at 6%, India will be the fastest growing major economy in the world. There's no question about that. And even multilateral agencies like the IMF and World Bank say this. It's not just me saying it or the government of India saying it. Now, what's working for India in this context? Let's have a quick run through that. Yes, inflation in the last 6 months has been above the comfort levels of the Monetary Policy Committee's limits, which is 4% plus or minus 2%. We went past 7% and we have dropped to 6.7, I think, if I'm right, last month. And the good news is that the trajectory is going down. I mean, no less than the RBI governor is on record saying inflation may have peaked in April. So inflation is certainly something that we need to be keeping an eye on. We cannot say that, okay, it is peak, the trajectory is going down and it's going to be all good times ahead. Certainly not, especially given the problems with energy prices, which is what is a major contribution to our inflation in the last few months. What are the things which are working? We have a stable macroeconomic environment. Even with all this, fiscal deficit is at very high levels, but it's under control. Government revenues, tax revenues are rising, and rising, they're galloping actually. Direct tax revenues, GST revenues. On the revenue side, I don't think there are worries for the government. On the expenditure side, yes, but this budget, when you talk of a 6% fiscal deficit, this budget, when it was crafted, was done very intelligently. There are enough buffers built into it. It's a very conservative budget. The estimates for revenues have been pegged artificially quite low, which is why probably you're seeing a 20%, 22% growth in tax revenues in the last quarter. But the thing is, there are enough buffers that have been built in to the budget for the fiscal deficit. Yes, disinvestment is not going to go anywhere this year. There's no way you're going to meet the target, and with the markets being what they are, it's highly unlikely you will be able to make any big deals in the next 9 months that you have, 8-9 months. But to compensate for that, the government earned a handsome sum from spectrum sales, right? 1.5 lakh crores. So that is going to give them a nice buffer. And I was talking to a very senior bureaucrat in the finance ministry just 2 weeks ago in Delhi. And the gentleman was very comfortable. He said, we will meet the fiscal deficit target, if not, overachieve. So he said, and I'm not, and this gentleman is not prone to extremities. He's quite a balanced person, and he's a person who knows what's happening in the economy. So this is the feedback that one got on the fiscal deficit front. The worry to my mind is not fiscal deficit, but the current account deficit, because exports are in trouble, largely because of the slowdown in the West and India's major markets, and also because of our own making. We have this propensity to take sharp aim at our foot and shoot ourselves when things are going well. We saw that in operation. Oil and petroleum and refined products are a big part of our exports basket. And what did the government do 2 months ago? They imposed an export duty on petroleum products. They had their reasons. That's another matter. So what we have seen is exports of petroleum products are now lower than what they would have been otherwise. And there are also slowdown related factors for other product exports. So with exports falling and imports rising, especially because of crude oil and gold, which they are now trying to control, your trade deficit is ballooning. It was $100 billion in the first quarter of this year. And what was it last year? It was $40 billion. 2.5 times rise in 1 year in trade deficit. And you're looking at a current account deficit of a little over 3% for this year, which is quite on the borderline of what should set alarm bells ringing. Last year's current account deficit, for comparison purposes, was 1.2%. Where is 1.2% and where is 3%? So current account deficit is a problem, especially in a situation where capital flows are under threat. We saw what happened between March and July, and even now it's happening in some measure, when capital started going out of this country, when foreign investors started selling in the stock markets, in the debt markets, and pulling out their money. I think about 13 or 14 billion dollars were pulled out between April and August, first week, from the Indian markets. And the impact was immediately seen on the rupee. The rupee started going on a cartwheel, and the RBI had to step in. And of course, it has a huge arsenal, $600 billion of reserves. And it did spend $20-30 billion to support the rupee. But yet the rupee went down from 75, 76 to almost 80. Today it's, I think, just a shade below 80. So this is a risk that we need to be mindful of, the current account deficit and its impact on the larger economy. But the good thing going for India today is that our financial system is quite robust. Banks which were reeling under NPAs 4 years ago, today the NPAs have been cleaned up. Bank balance sheets are strong now and they are in a position to lend. And we have seen the latest data released by the RBI shows that bank credit growth went up 14% in the April-June period compared to 5% last year. So bank credit is rising and banks are in a position to lend. The balance sheets are strong. They don't have any skeletons in their cupboards, right? And the twin balance sheet problem, which was coined infamously in 2017, 2016, when India was hit by sick banks and sick corporate sector. Balance sheets weighed down by huge debt. Both are now cleaned up. Banks are okay, and the corporate sector also, thanks to COVID, which is a little counterintuitive, but thanks to COVID, the corporate sector has slimmed down, costs have been shaved, staff costs especially, and they are now in a much better position than what they were 4-5 years ago. Leveraging in the corporate sector is not a worry except for some groups, and I don't know, and you all know which those groups are. Leveraging is not an issue amongst the major companies, and bank balance sheets are strong. So that gives us semblance of comfort. The next point is about consumer sentiment, which Dr. Narayan alluded to. Thanks to the pent-up demand in the last 4 years during COVID, consumer sentiment is on the rise. People are out buying everything that they can lay their hands on. Consumer durable sales are, rising. People are traveling. People are spending on luxury goods. Gold sales, gold imports have been going up. Why? Because sales are rising in the country, as always. So, consumer sentiment is going to be a key factor, and I think the next 3 months, beginning now with Onam in Kerala very soon, and ending with Deepavali in November, October, November, that's going to be the key factor to watch. What is going to be the festival sales in this country? That will give you an idea of consumer sentiment. And if you go by bookings of passenger car companies, they're not able to handle the demand. If you look at consumer durables, you get the same picture. For my curiosity, I went around on August 15th to some of these retail showrooms to see what it is like. Every retail showroom in Chennai was chock-a-block with people buying all kinds of gadgets and appliances. I mean, stuff like dishwashers, which you would not think people in Chennai would buy. Even they were flying off the shelves. And the store salesman said, sir, if you buy something now, you'll have to wait for 3-4 days for deliveries because we have a backlog. So, consumer sentiment is upbeat, which is good news. But whether companies will be able to service this demand is a question mark, because the constraint comes on the supply side. For various reasons, the chip shortage for automobiles and consumer durables and various other things. So, to sum up, the positives are a strong financial system, a stable macro environment as of now. I would underline the as of now. We need to watch some variables like current account deficit, inflation, interest rates. Again, consumer durable sales and consumer sentiment will depend on how interest rates move from here. We already seen a 1.4 percentage point rise in interest rates by the RBI in the last 3 months. That will take time to transmit through the system. So the rates at the consumer level are already rising, and you'll begin to feel the full impact by September, October. And there are more rises in store. I think And I was talking about the risks that India faces. I said the global slowdown in China and the Western world is one. Energy prices is the second. The third is, to my mind, I don't know, I'm not an economist, but Dr. Narayan can correct me if I'm wrong. I think the third risk that we are facing is on interest rates. I'll explain this. India's inflation, as I said, is on a downward trajectory, and hopefully it will go down. And the RBI has already inflicted 1.4 percentage point rise on us, and there is talk there will be another 60 basis points at least, taking interest rates to 6% in this country. Now, the thing is, in the Western world, inflation is continuing to rise. And we are talking of, as I said, 8 to 10% in the US, 10% already in the UK, projected to go to 13, 15%. Europe, similarly. So the Western central banks are now in a coordinated operation raising rates. They're making capital scarce, and they're pushing up interest rates. So if India, assuming a scenario where inflation goes down and India is in a comfortable position where it can actually not raise rates, will it be able to do that is the question mark, because we are now a hostage to the monetary policies of the Western world. Because if you don't raise rates, if you don't maintain the delta between interest rates in India and interest rates in the West, the chances are that there is going to be capital outflows and the rupee will be in trouble. The central bank is brave. It says we don't use monetary policy for managing foreign exchange markets. But that's exactly what they did in May when they, in a sudden operation, raised rates one fine morning. Why did they do that morning? Because that night, the Federal Reserve was all set to raise rates by 75 basis points. And if the RBI had not increased rates on May 4th by 50 basis points in India, the rupee would have been in trouble the next morning in the markets. So this is a risk that we are running now. This is a part of the globalized world. You can't run away from that. When you get capital flows, you see asset prices rising, you make money, everybody is happy, the Sensex goes to 60,000 and people are celebrating. But similarly, when the opposite happens, we should be prepared for that. So that's the risk I would like to flag. So in some, I think I'm exceeding my time limit. So we are in a good place, India as it is. And unless our policymakers deliberately mess up somewhere, or if we are not able to take the force of the global slowdown, I think we are set for good growth. And I don't think recession is anywhere in the horizon for India. Absolutely not. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I hope you enjoy.
Good evening, everybody, and it's nice to be back in MMA. Well, I'm really happy and privileged to be part of this panel. I think I was born when Dr. Narayanan was receiving his IAS degree, so you can see the kind of generations we are on the stage actually. So I may be a little contrarian to what was spoken by the other two speakers, because I think this is the moment for India. I say this with a lot of optimism. And I will explain you a little bit why I believe the moment has arrived for India and the Indian economy actually. When I look at the external world, I think post-pandemic, there are clearly two important challenges the world is facing. One, of course, is climate change. And the cost of climate change has been quite devastating on every country. And I think time has come where I think while there is no concerted effort on managing climate change, but there's been a general consensus on decarbonization of economies actually. And to my mind, this is really opening up new frontiers for industry. Because I'm coming from industry, I'm going to talk about industry's opportunities here. The second biggest challenge that we have seen post-pandemic is the recent 6 months old, the war between Ukraine and Russia actually. What it has done is, it has kind of disrupted three areas. The first area is the food challenge that the world has, because as many of you know, Ukraine was a very, very prosperous agricultural part of Europe. The second, of course, is a lot of raw materials that Ukraine had possessed for the future technologies on mobility, on hybrid solutions, for a lot more electronic production actually. So there is a lot of raw materials also we are missing out from Ukraine actually. And then the third, of course, what we are missing is, of course, Ukraine was also a large exporter of defense equipments. There was quite a lot of defense production happening out of Ukraine as well. So in this context, when I look at India and the Indian industry, why I feel optimistic, I will kind of share 2 or 3 areas. I think when I look at the efforts the government has put in during the pandemic, especially on the China Plus One strategy to push the PLI schemes, has really pushed a lot of investment into a lot of sectors. There are multiple reasons why these PLI schemes were launched. Of course, one is to really de-risk India from reducing the imports. But of course, it's a journey. You can't just achieve this tomorrow. But I think the direction in which the Indian economy is kind of pushed into is there's a lot of manufacturing pickup happening in India. And as I speak, I think the automotive component exports has been positive in the last 2 months actually, to the rest of the world actually. This is largely an opportunity as I see. The second area that I see where government has put a lot of impetus is on the ease of doing business. There's a lot of work that the government has done in terms of simplifying a lot of things for not only starting of businesses, but also for the existing businesses actually. So this is the second big impetus that you can also see. There's a lot of investment that is flowing into India actually. And I can see a lot more new industries that are coming into India, especially the semiconductor industry. I think 3-4 years back, I think the mobile industry was kind of more an assembling organizations, bringing in a lot of, but today we start to see a lot more local production of PCBs. And I mean, there are 3-4 listed companies, which many of you know today. We produce a lot in air conditioning, electronics, sub-assemblies, consumer durables. So there's a lot of production that is happening where I think at some point in time, we will not be China in 5 years, but at least in 10 years, we will be as big as China in some of those chosen industries actually. The third important area, what I see is that even though there's been a pushback on the agriculture reforms, one of the things that I have noticed in the last 3-4 years is that the value addition in agriculture is going up. I mean, if you see the kind of value creation that we are seeing, 10 years back, a farmer used to sell 1 kilo of banana at 3 rupees. That was his price. Today, he sells it at 15 rupees. In 10 years, his price has gone up by 15. Of course, profits have not gone up because input costs also have gone up actually. But we are clearly moving on the value chain. And even in bananas, we are already seeing that we are able to capture from 15 rupees about 30 rupees of value creation. So this value addition in agriculture, there's a huge impetus. That's why you can also see the seafood industry is moving from just producing seafood to seafood cultivation as well as value-added branded products actually. The food and food processing industry is today already the biggest employer. It is even putting more employment than the information technology industry. It is the actual sunrise industry, and I think India has a great opportunity to become the food basket of the world in the next 10 years. There's a lot that is happening in this industry, and I'm very optimistic of that actually. So these are some of the 3 or 4 big things that are there. But the biggest challenges the industry is facing, I will kind of line some of them out actually. Managing supply chain has become a nightmare today because we have a lot of dependence on components that comes from rest of the world, especially the electronics components. So that is a big challenge that we face as a company and an enterprise actually. The second area that we see is the cost of electricity. And here I see both a challenge as well as an opportunity. Because India today produces something like 500 gigawatts of power, and still about 60% to 65% comes from coal. And I think coal today also the Indian coal again is not as, I would say efficiency-wise good as coal that is coming from Australia, for example, actually, because the carbon content of our coal is very different, actually. While we see a challenge in the energy sector, we've also seen there's a huge push by the government on the renewables and also on energy efficiency, actually. The recent Energy Efficiency Act that the government has enacted in the parliament is pushing a lot of small and medium enterprises to look at using energy efficient products. And as many of you know, we have actually cut down on energy and lighting by introducing technologies like LED. And today we have an industry which is more than close to $20 billion equivalent in terms of an LED manufacturing footprint in India. In the last 5 years, the government has started energy labeling program on air conditioners. There's a lot more products on consumer durables that the energy labeling program is coming. So all of this is actually auguring well to reduce the energy consumption of this nation. That's one positive direction the government has taken, actually. There's a huge push at the moment on renewables. There's a huge push on mobility. And this is an area where I think Indian auto manufacturing has both an opportunity as a challenge, because, it's getting into the price points of what we want is really dependent on a lot of raw material availability, actually. So this game would be interesting over the next 3-5 years. And this is both opportunity as well as challenge, because in my view, industry has a great potential to deliver here. And when I look around outside of India, whether it's Germany, which is the biggest car manufacturing focal point in Europe, or whether it is Japan, or whether it is in China, I think a lot of talent that needs to do work on design, engineering, and technology. We see India is already there in many of these markets. The question is, how do we co-collaborate with a lot of auto players and make this successful? So a lot would depend, and I would see a lot of shift happening where Indian IT companies would partner with a lot of automotive companies to really play this game very differently in the future, actually. Having said that, there are 2 or 3 things that India has distinctly stand out from rest of the world. When most of the world is driving ESG, as a big subject, basically, today, if you are not an ESG company, you don't have funding from the banks in many of the world, actually. And even in India, I think the stock market is looking at putting money on an ESG company. So ESG has become, many companies are seeing it as a vehicle to really survive in the future, actually. So I see ESG more and more gaining importance, which opens up both opportunities in 3 or 4 sectors for us. Food, of course, I mentioned, because food is going along with water. At the moment, we see a lot of investment happening in India on the water side. And a lot of companies are taking advantage of that. We see water becoming a very important subject for the industry. And at the same time, India has a lot of non-revenue water, because, this is a very sensitive subject. But at the same time, in agriculture, government is putting a lot of impetus to use water. By changing crops, they are looking at, instead of producing more rice, can you produce more millets? Crop change can also be one of the thought processes in which the governments are working. But Telangana, for example, has done remarkable work on water. Madhya Pradesh has done remarkable work on water. So water is more and more attracting a lot of investment, and we already see that water is becoming a very important discussion in the opportunities for business. The second important that we see is around the mobility. I mean, you all know that today, I think 2-wheelers and 3-wheelers, there's no other country in the world on electric mobility which is growing as fast as we can. Today, what is really stopping it is the right availability of raw materials and the right pricing, actually, because today the supply chain is still not ready to absorb all the price increases that are there, but the technologies are already there in India. And the charging infrastructure needs to be built to go hand in hand with that. So there's a lot of work going on that, and I believe this will open up a lot of opportunities. The third area that I see is that I think there is a lot of heavy industries in India already looking at decarbonization. I think the cement manufacturers, some of them have already called out that they want to be carbon neutral by 2028, actually. Now, slowly the game, even in textile exports, is going to be decarbonization becoming a very important thing, because by 2025-26, carbon tax will come in Europe, and already my personal view is this, that companies are looking at, some of the textile companies are looking at decarbonization as well. Now, I may sound a little bit over optimistic, but the fact is, I think this is the areas where India would play a lead position, because there are two things that is in favor of India: demographics and the digital capabilities. I cannot think of any country which has a better demographic dividend than India. And I am very optimistic that this would play a big game changer for us, even with lesser capital. Of course, we need to get it right in terms of all of these technologies. The second is around digital. I think in most of the world today, software is becoming a price every citizen pays for something. I mean, even in our own world, we spend a lot of money on buying software for whatever reasons, actually. And I think here we have a great opportunity to build a lot of India-centric platforms. And here I would like to call out the initiative by Mr. Nandan Nilekani on the ONDC. The open network data commerce, digital commerce, would be a game changer for India, because this is a platform which will enable someone sitting in a village in Karur can sell to someone sitting in Delhi, actually. So I believe all of these backbones today are already happening, and the trade is already happening there. As we start evolving, I think, we would get better in terms of the commerce that we can do and really touch a lot larger parts of India. And finally, I think why I'm optimistic is that, when I see India is a continent of 30 states. But if I look at India in a little bit of a triangular shape, the top 15-20% has a per capita, which is a little bit like the middle class of Europe. And the middle of India has got a better per capita than maybe a little bit more than Indonesia, actually. And the bottom 40% is where we are a little bit around the sub-Sahara Africa region, actually. But I think there's so much of innovation that is happening in each of these pyramids, a part of the pyramids, actually. I believe people from the bottom are moving up, and it's only these three basic things like food, energy, water. I think if we can get it right, we really would disrupt our imports and imports bill, actually. And a lot of effort has to be put in this area in the next century, or maybe 30, 40 years. Of course, India has called out becoming a decarbonized nation by 2070. To sum it up, I think from the industry perspective, I only see a lot of opportunities. The biggest disruptor is the cost of capital. And I think, as Dr. Narayanan said, we would somehow get out on being on the edge of the problem. But I believe that cost of capital is something we are kind of, much stronger than what we were with the cleanup of the banks, actually. So I'm a lot more optimistic here. And I do believe that, India would do well despite all the clouds around us. And we would be the fastest growing economy, at least for the next 10 years. Again, I'm very optimistic on that, actually. Thank you very much.
Open for questions. We have 2 questions from the audience. We got no. Thank you, panelists. Now we have time for 2 or 3 questions. We have time for 2 or 3 questions, and whoever wants to ask question, just ask one question to one of the panelists. And don't lecture. Not just for you, anyone. Just keep it short and straight, and no opinions. Please introduce yourself.
I am Swami, MMA member. This question pertaining to Mr. Ravichandran. Hello. Ravichandran. Since you talked about automotive industry, in electrical vehicle manufacturing industry, what do you feel encouraging China in our manufacturing sector. Is it viable now at this stage, given the present scenario? Because the Modi government has never encouraged China to participate in our manufacturing sector. But directly or indirectly, they are trying to participate. The question is whether to encourage China in our manufacturing sector of electrical vehicle manufacturing sector, directly or indirectly.
The short answer is, if you look at who's the world leader in two-wheelers, even in a continent like Africa, it is the Indian players. So I think we have the capability to continue to do well in the electric vehicles. And that's why I mentioned also that in the two-wheelers and three-wheelers, our biggest disruptor can be the raw material availability, but we still continue to grow in these, quite exponentially we are growing in this sector.
More questions?
Hello, I am Chartered Accountant. My name is Kannan Sundararajan. I would like to address Dr. Narayanan. Sir, how far you feel, the unemployment is being controlled, in spite of during this COVID-19 and a lot of layoffs during 2021, 2022. Actually, it stands at 7.8% the unemployment rate as of June 22. It was 5.98% in 2021. And in fact, Mr. Ravichandran has clearly put off, lot of industries are coming to India.
Please.
Yeah, it is about the unemployment rate, how it is being controlled.
Yeah, unemployment is a serious problem, but unemployment is also matched by lack of skills. For example, you take the IT sector today, in the next 2-3 years, we require 4 million people. But hardly 2.4 million people will be available. We'll be short for 1.6 million people. The MSME expansion that is happening is going to be absorbed. But remember one thing, we are adding about 10 million people every year to the employment pool. 10 million. There are no jobs. No economy can provide 10 million jobs in a year. So there has to be some kind of an alternative support for livelihood. And that alternative support is what many, many states are talking about. But at the same time, there is also a reluctance on the part of the youth to skill themselves, to spend time and effort. All of you, some of you may be running factories. You see how difficult it is for you to get people to come and work in your factory. You are getting people from Bihar, Orissa. Why? Because local people are not willing to work in the factory. So it's both a chicken and egg kind of a situation.
Namaskaram. I am Ramesh. This question is being addressed to Mr. Raghuveer. Well, during the course of your conversation with us, you had conveniently skipped the major thing that's happening in our economy in terms of the wholesale, a major in the cement industry exiting India. And we have got reports that there is going to be a cold winter in the unicorn funding also, the second rounds and third rounds and what have you. So when that is the case, I want you to put in your mind for a little while so that these questions are also being addressed as part of your presentation now.
Yeah, your question is that foreign investors are not. Well, if you look at Wholesome, it exited for a certain reason. They are reorganizing their operations. They are not exiting India because India has become unattractive. You should look at the reason why this is happening. There are foreign investors who keep changing their strategies based on their own imperatives. So Wholesome left not because there is no prospects for cement industry in India. They went for their own reasons. And the so-called winter for startups I think you should look at it in perspective. Uh, when startup funding was hot, it was not because necessarily there were so many brilliant ideas in startups. It was also because there was a lot of free money available worldwide and it was looking for investment opportunities. And when money becomes expensive, obviously people will stop funding. So that is the logic there. And I don't think it's a bad thing. Startups have to learn to first, scale up on their own to the extent that they can, rather than just take money freely which is available and spend it without any, yeah.
Thank you, sir. We have over 600 viewers watching this program. Number of questions come. We'll just take two questions so that we'll try and finish it on time as planned. Here's a question from Mr. Francis. Anyone of them could answer. Looking back, would it have served the nation better if you have stopped with privatization, not globalization? You want me to repeat the question, sir? Looking back, would it have served the nation better if we have stopped with privatization and not the globalization? Yes. Disinvestment and privatization. Private.
So, are you for privatization or against?
He's wanting to know what is the best option for the India, sir.
I told you right at the beginning, we are a left of center thinkers. We are not, there is nobody here who thinks right of center. So if you don't think right of center, then public sector is the answer. If you are a country which is thinking left, right of center, then you'd say public sector is not the answer. It's in your mind. It's in everybody's mind. Is there anybody here who thinks seriously right of center? I don't think so.
Great, sir. Now there's so much of things happening between the state and the government and thing. We want to know this again, Mr. Ram Prasad. What role does the state play in national growth? State play in the national growth. When the state started looking inwards.
State plays obviously an important role in everything that happens in the economy, right? Either by dabbling in what they shouldn't, or keeping away from what they should actually be monitoring and controlling. So status, if the question is about whether states should get into business and PSUs should be the ones that are driving the economy, then I think the answer, Dr. Narayan was just talking about left of center and right of center. I'm firmly right of center when it comes to this. I think states should stay away from business. It should only be looking at the social sector, education, health, that kind of things. It should not be in the business of running an airline or running a steel plant.
Thank you, sir. There are a lot of questions.
Just to add one point, there was a mention by Dr. Narayanan on Tamil Nadu. In Tamil Nadu now, if you look at, is one of the best performing states for the last maybe 2 decades, close to. And we don't have too many public sectors here.
Good. That could be.
And it's purely because of the industrial environment, which has really been thriving on the good education system that we had.
Yes, a couple of them we had, I think we all converted real estate, surgical instrument plant. I know it's very, very popular plant. Yes, sir, thank you so much. And, I think the number of questions which has come on freebies and all, I think it's subdued. We won't discuss about it now. And thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Big round of applause to the distinguished panelists this evening for the lovely evening. Great insight. I think we all become more wiser. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Get back home safely, but you can be sure it's not going to rain for the time being. By the time you reach, it should be settled down. See you on Sunday. Another great evening with quiz and many more. Bye bye. Thank you for joining us. Till we meet again. Good night. Bye bye.